Welcome back. I'm Gary Parr.
And I'm Vonna Pfeiffer.
And you're listening to Fiber Talk, the twice-weekly podcast for the needlework artist. And we have an artist with us this week, Natalie Dupuis. Natalie, welcome.
Hi, Gary and Vonna.
Right out of the gate, you were a school teacher.
I was, yeah.
Emphasis on were.
I was a primary school teacher in Canada, and I also lived in France, so in France and in London in the UK. And once I had children, I decided that I'd rather teach adults instead of kids. So now I'm an embroidery teacher.
Oh, I admire elementary school teachers. Oh, man. That's a patience I don't have. I'm a former middle school and high school teacher, and I could never see how that elementary stuff worked. That just did not have the patience for that. No.
Well, elementary teachers say the same thing about middle and high school teachers.
Yep, I tell the story often. I was my last teaching job before I went to the magazine world was at a high school, and the elementary kids were doing something in the gym after school. And so they were, all lined up on the floor, sitting on the floor as they are trained to do. Mm-hmm. And I was there as a science teacher, so I was after school doing labs, putting a lab together. And a school bus was headed out with the high school football or basketball team or something. And one of the cheerleaders forgot her, her lipstick, makeup, something, and came running back in, which they're not supposed to do, not supposed to come back. And so I shanghaied her at the corner, said, what are you doing? Well, I forgot this. Oh, you got to let me get it. And of course, cheerleader is a disaster. And, and I said, go ahead, go get it, because why not? And so she gets it out of her locker and runs back out. Thank you so much. Okay, have a good day. And the elementary teacher says, how do you put up with that? And I just said to her,
right.
It's really pretty easy compared to what you do. I don't know how you do it. So
that's nice.
Yeah, it's different worlds.
Yeah.
Yep. So,
but the adults, teaching adults, I can use a lot of my skills as a primary school teacher running those classes for adults too. It's pretty amazing.
Yeah. I've had that discussion many times with teachers that are still teaching, and I could never do anything else. I don't have any skills. And I've said many a time, you'd be amazed the skills that you have as a teacher that can be applied. Amazed.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Totally transferable. For me, particularly in the world of embroidery, teaching, designing, assessing, all my teaching skills have been used here.
Yeah. Yeah, because it really, you're basically doing lesson plans and dealing with students of all learning levels and all learning types. And then you have homework with, I forgot how to do this. Can you help me out? Yeah, you got all of them. Yep.
Yeah, and assessment too is a big part of it. And encouraging my students to look at their work, ask how they could do better, and deciding how to push them to the next level in a way that's going to make them feel good but grow.
Right. Yep. All the skills. That's right. That's right. Yeah, and your materials got to be buttoned down before you start a class too. Yep.
Yes. I taught at a national level seminar in Canada this past May, and I thought to myself, am I the only teacher here that's still writing out traditional lesson plans for my embroidery classes? And I had to have a giggle at myself. So I can probably cut this back a little bit.
Yeah, you might lighten up. Yeah. Yeah, you might. But a habit. It's it gives you your structure.
Habit,
and sure. Yeah. I think everyone who is an effective teacher has it in one form or another, even if it's just in their heads.
Yeah.
You got to have that lesson plan of some kind, yeah.
Oh, I think my students had a giggle when they walked in the classroom and saw the objectives of the day written on the board. But it keeps me on track as well.
Yeah. Yep. Oh, that would scare me to see that on the board as a student. Oh, no. She's actually going to do stuff. Get me out of here. Yeah. So when did you start the needlework? Did that come after the teaching or before?
It's an interesting, somewhat long-winded answer, but I'll try and make it short.
We have nothing but time, Natalie. Go for it.
Okay. Well, my first, I didn't grow up doing embroidery. I didn't have family members in the home that were teaching me any embroidery, but I had a really nice high school home economics teacher, and she taught me to use a sewing machine and to finish by hand. And I got inspired to make clothes from her, just with whatever materials I had, and learn how to finish nicely, which was great. And then when I was a teenager, I moved in with an aunt, and she was really into embroidery. She did crewel work and needlepoint and cross stitch. So I decided I admired her. I said, well, she does this beautiful stuff. Let me have a go. So I started with needlepoint when I was 17 with her. And there was the, brick and mortar needlework shop just down the street from her house. And that was like heaven for me. So I went in, bought loads of materials and different kinds of kits that inspired me. And I worked away on that kind of stuff for a couple of years. And then I kind of put it away until I decided I wanted to have kids, which was about 7 years ago. And I came back to it because I thought, I want to make something beautiful for my children, something made by me. And what do I like to do? I like to do handwork. I like to do all kinds of crafts I was into, but embroidery to me seemed extra special. That seemed like the type of thing that could be an heirloom that you pass on to your children. Mm-hmm. Not that I knew how to create an heirloom item at the time. So I was living in London at the time. And of course, if you live in London and you're interested in arts, you go to, events like the Knitting and Stitching Show. And that's how I came across the Royal School of Needlework. And I signed up for some day classes there. I had a fantastic tutor named Sophie Long, and she introduced me to surface embroidery and ribbon embroidery. So totally different than the needlepoint and cross stitch that I had been introduced to from my aunt years before. And I liked it a lot. My schedule was quite busy, so I took on Sophie as a private tutor for a year. And I just grew in my skill level and started to try out different types of embroidery. I tried some stump work. I got kits that I had no idea how to do, and Sophie would walk me through them. So, there was no gold work in my life at that point. Yeah. And then about 5 years ago, I was flipping through Inspirations magazine, and I saw this gold work insect that I said, wow, that is just amazing. I'm going to make this. I don't know anything about gold work, but I'm going to make it. And it was hard. I employed a teacher to walk me through all the steps and figure out how to do that, because also, just working from limited notes without a teacher the first time you're trying a technique can be a bit tricky. And then it just took off from there. That became my passion. I took classes from other gold work teachers. And then the biggest change for me was moving from being a stitcher of other people's designs to saying, you know what, I'm going to make a go of this. I'm going to stop teaching and stitching other people's designs, because you also need to gather permissions, which it can be complicated, and become a designer and make my own gold work.
Now that's interesting that you, so many people have one technique that they start with, but you pretty much tried the waterfront right out of the gate then.
Well, some counted work, a little bit of surface, and then a big jump into gold work.
You still do the other techniques, or have you really locked in on gold work lately?
Oh, I very rarely do anything but gold work. I do a little bit of Japanese embroidery as well. But I was attracted to Japanese embroidery because one of the phases in Japanese embroidery, one of the levels is a gold work piece. Oh. It's a flower that's done all in gold. I said, oh, right, I'm going to learn how to do that, work with Japanese metal threads in the Japanese technique. And then I kind of got interested and sucked into working with the silks as well. So now I do mostly gold work, a little bit of Japanese embroidery.
Did you work your way through the Japanese levels, or did you just dive into that one?
Well, I'm kind of doing it backwards. I did level 4 and then level 1, and now I'm going back to level 5. So I don't know if I'll ever get to 2 or 3. Yeah, we'll see how it goes. So I'm not going the traditional route with that, but luckily I have a flexible instructor and a really supportive group.
I was going to say your instructor must be just having trouble sleeping at night if you're not following the prescribed path.
No, I'm lucky to have a
Yeah.
flexible teacher, but also if you don't go the traditional way and do it traditionally, you can't become a Japanese embroidery teacher. But that's not on my radar because I'm very happy with being a goldwork teacher now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's what I was thinking, because that's my understanding is you have to do the progression as it's set up if you want to get the paperwork at the end or whatever it is.
Exactly. Yeah. That's not my goal. It was more to learn some techniques that I could incorporate into the more English style goldwork embroidery that I like to do.
Art background?
Limited. When I decided that I was going to become a designer, the hardest thing was my lack of drawing skills. So, to remedy that, you take drawing classes. So I signed up for some drawing classes and I hated it. It was terrible. It was really hard. And I suffered through them and got better. And then I signed up for watercolor classes so I could have a better understanding of color and paint my designs and see how colors are interacted. And it's quite nice because my watercolor classes have helped me understand silk shading a bit more and seeing how one color blends into another and what is the effect of having a warm red and cool red together for the viewer. Mm-hmm. So this is all just in the last 2 years that I've done that we'll call it art training.
Well, you packed a lot into just a few years here. Wow.
Yeah, I'm really building and trying to grow. And, when I decided that I was going to become a designer, I kind of took the bull by the horns. I said, I need to find a mentor. And I found 2 mentors. I need to take art and drawing. I signed up for art and drawing and taking as many classes as I can, still in my own goldwork technique. And each summer I've been going back to the RSN for private lessons to further my design skills.
So you're just going there, say, for a month? To learn at the RSN?
Oh, no. You can't afford a month of private lessons at the RSN.
Okay.
That would be astronomical. No, you go for a day at a time.
Oh, okay. I wondered.
I wondered. Yeah, when I go to the UK, I don't just go for the one-day class. I also am conducting research, so I make time to visit different archives, different museums, interviewing people in the field. So I usually go for a few weeks.
Okay. But the Royal School, just a day or two, huh?
Yeah, that's all.
Yeah.
But that's a real treat. It tied you over to the next time that you can save up and have private lessons again the next year.
Yeah, that would be, one day of private lesson. Boy, that would be special.
It is. You get a room all to you and your tutor to yourself, and have a gorgeous view, and you have access to lots of books. And if you tell them in advance that you'd like to see some things from the archives for whatever is your technique that you're studying, they'll bring the pieces down for you. And it's really, your day. It's catered to whatever you need to do. So you might already be quite proficient at we'll say cross stitch, but there's something about, you want to know about cross stitch in the 1800s and variations that you might have seen, and they'll be able to tell you in detail for that. And you were not going to get that if you take a general class.
Mm-hmm. So you literally then, this year, this is what I want to do. You can lay it right out for them and they'll deliver it.
Yeah. And
by all day, are we talking 9 to 5 or?
Kind of like 10 to 4, very British in the timing.
Okay. And then follow up, or is that pretty much ends?
That, because your kind of day is over by then, but you get to know your tutor through the day, and then usually I've followed up with a couple questions online afterwards, and they always reply.
Mm-hmm. And you're right there at the main facility. I forget what that's called.
Yeah, at Hampton Court.
Hampton Court, yeah, that's where it's at.
Yeah, really a gorgeous setting. They have something special there.
So you're getting the full history and everything. Wow.
Yeah, you walk through security and you feel like you're walking into a very special place.
That's neat. Now, is that when you're there? Then I assume there's plenty to walk around and see, other than just classrooms.
No, are you talking about the
at Hampton Court? Yeah.
Setting? No. When you go in for your lesson, it's fairly, they don't want people disturbing the classes, so you can't go around and poke your head into all the rooms. And it's you go in, you're escorted in, you go to your classroom, you pretty much stay there beside your lunch hour for the day, peer out the windows at the nice view, and then you go home. You're kind of escorted out afterwards.
Oh, okay.
They take the palace. They take the security very seriously. So everything's sign in, sign out, and go in the places that you're permitted to go to.
Oh, that's too bad, because I'd be wandering around, sticking my head in. Can I sit in the corner over here and just listen? That'd be me. Oh, well.
It's okay. The other aspect is really fascinating. You'll be so happy to be with a teacher that you won't want to lose any time.
Okay. Well, I'll put that on the list for some time in the future. That would be fun. Mm-hmm. Other than these classes and tutors, you've been pretty much self-taught?
Yes. Yeah, I do a lot of looking at pictures online, taking courses, 2-3 day classes here and there at different seminars, and a lot of practice, a lot of working up samples, trying things out, teaching classes and seeing how they go, trial classes.
Mm-hmm. Of course, that's the ultimate teacher, is when you have to teach a class. Yeah. Yeah. And I think when you're a teacher who enjoys your work, that's what you really get your positive energy from, is being in a classroom setting and seeing that it's going well and that your students are doing well, everybody's happy. That's like the ultimate gift. When you decided to do design work, I mean, obviously you were all in. Did you intend for it to be a business, or what was your ultimate goal?
When I moved I'll just step back a little bit. When I moved from England back to Canada, I moved in the winter time, which was very cold. I had young children, like a newborn and, a toddler, and I was feeling rather isolated. So I decided that I needed to build a community of embroidery, and I wasn't sure how to do that. I thought, right, I'm going to try and invite people for stitch-ins at my place. And in the UK, there is something called Meetup. It's an event that you can post on the internet, and you say, anybody interested in running or embroidery or cooking, meet at this location at this time, and anybody can come for free. So I set up the same kind of thing in Montreal, Canada, where I had moved to. And I was getting a nice turnout of women. And somebody said to me, well, instead of just teaching some embroidery in your home, why don't you see if you can teach at this arts cafe? And so it just kind of took off from there. I didn't intend for it to get so popular or so big. But, my little idea of just building an embroidery community quickly turned into, actually, I'm going to make a business out of this, and I'm going to use my teaching skills, and I'm going to get paid for my work. And that will be my contribution to the household. And then it moved from, as I said, at first I wasn't a designer at that point. I was always seeking permission from other designers. If we buy all your kits from you, do you give me permission to teach? Right. But that gets old pretty fast, right? So that's when I decided to make the change. And I was fortunate that I was able to find 2 mentors whose work I admired, work ethic I admired, and they just would give me advice whenever I needed it and encourage me. One of them was Anna Scott from Australia, and the other one was a lady, Carolyn Mitchell, who you recently interviewed.
Yes.
She was big in the education department of the Embroidery Association of Canada. Mm-hmm. So, these 2 ladies have really kind of given me a helping hand to move from less serious to where I am now.
So this art cafe, what was that like? Was that a coffee shop, basically?
It was actually a very interesting place. It was called La Société Textile, the Textile Society. And the idea was that you could come into this cafe, and they didn't actually sell food or drink. You paid for your time to be there, something like $7 an hour. And you bring in a project and you work on it in a nice space that had tea and coffee facilities. You could help yourself, and you could be around other crafty people. And they did sell some craft supplies, some fabrics and wools and this kind of thing. But it was like a community of textile artists, serious and not serious, that could just come and share the same space. And unfortunately, it closed down a few months ago.
Oh, that's too bad, because that sounds great.
Yeah, it was really something special for the community. But, in the end, it all comes down to budget and, how much income can a place generate to stay alive.
Yeah, because that exposes you to other crafts and
Yep.
Yeah. Oh.
Yeah. So they would also, as well as being like this cafe, they would run classes. They had embroidery classes, they had goldwork classes, they had macrame, they had knitting, they had quilting. They kind of had a mix of everything. So when the classes weren't on, well, even when classes were on, you could just come and be in the environment with others.
Mm-hmm.
Because as you know, stitching alone at home can be isolating.
Yeah.
And sometimes you crave the company of others.
Yeah, no, I'm fine by myself.
I mean, I work 90% by myself, but every once in a while, I do enjoy showing what I'm working on to somebody, getting some feedback, and being in their company, even though this means I get a lot less work done.
Yeah, I suppose. I can see how that environment, though, would be a lot of fun, because you would really, the interaction, I'm sure you can learn an awful lot.
Yeah.
Just dropping in. Oh, it's too bad it didn't make it.
Yeah.
You got me thinking, is there some place around here where that could be done? Because that could be fun. Huh, okay.
Yeah, I think with the right business model, it could work well.
Was that kind of a downtown thing where they had plenty of overhead?
Oh, yeah, they were in a great location.
Oh.
But, location also means very expensive rents.
Right.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think location is also quite important, though. Otherwise, people aren't going to come to you.
Right.
Not going to come out of their way to build that community.
Yeah. Was it? I've been to Montreal once. Was it in the old section?
No, not right down there.
Okay.
But still in a nice quaint area of Montreal as well.
Okay. Business trips all over the place, and Montreal still, that was many years ago, still sticks in my mind. I got an evening down in the old section and got to go to the Basilica. Which one is the big ornate one?
Notre Dame.
Oh, geez. Still, the photos I have from that's one impressive place. Yeah.
Oh, that's nice. You have a good memory.
Yep. Oh yeah. It was one of those few business trips where I got home and thought, boy, I could have stayed another day or two. Great stuff. Yep. So you start designing really out of necessity then to be able to teach your own things when you want to at your own pace then.
Yeah, exactly. And sometimes other designers would say, no, I don't give you permission. So I thought, okay, well, I'm just going to make my own then. No problem, sort of. But the encouragement came when my early designs were well received. I entered them in some competitions and I got positive feedback. So I thought, okay, maybe this is not so hard. Maybe I can do this. And, I wouldn't go back, actually. I really love thinking of an idea, putting it down on paper, painting it, gathering the materials, and sometimes I don't ever get beyond that stage because that is such a joyous planning process. I get a lot of enjoyment from that. So I've got a book of ideas and drawings and annotated pictures, and when I have enough time, they will all come to life. But for now, many of them just stay there until I finish one project and move on to the next. And new ideas keep coming.
Well, that's good. You'll need them.
Yeah, the ideas come faster than the stitching time.
Yeah. Well, yeah, that's true. Yeah, that's interesting. Different people have different approaches. Some people have a sketchbook with them all the time. Some people, things just fall out of their heads. Mm-hmm. And so it sounds like you have more of a scrapbook type thing.
Yeah, it's like a watercolor notebook, and inside of it I draw ideas when they come to mind. So it's not with me all the time, but sometimes I can be out and about and I'll get a really good idea and then I'll be afraid that I'm going to forget about it. So I just can't wait to get home so I can put it in my book. And then, once it's in my book, I feel like on the way to becoming real and not forgotten.
Has the drawing gotten better?
Yes, it has. It has, because I'm drawing subjects that are interesting to me. The problem with the drawing class I took is that the subject matter that we were asked to draw, it was not meaningful to me. So I found it difficult in that sense.
Yeah, I can understand that. I can't draw a box, so
Right.
I wouldn't even try. But
my style is a bit more like graphic design, and when you take proper drawing class, you're sketching nude models, and I in my mind I'm like I don't need to know how to do that to make the type of designs that I like to do. So yeah, it's gotten better.
Well, good. Glad to hear you're progressing. That's great. Yeah. I was most intrigued as I went through all of your materials. Your master's program in metal thread embroidery, and then your research on Or Nue versus Italian shading. Tell about that. That made me stop and think.
Okay, great. So the San Francisco School of Needlework and Design, a few years ago, they were advertising a master's level program, which is now changed into their comprehensive studies program. So before their comprehensive studies program was officially launched, I said, well, I want to do a master's level program with you, and here are all my goals, and what can we do together? So for 2 weeks, I went down there and worked on the areas in metal thread embroidery that I thought would help take me further. And this included research. It required work to be done after the 2 weeks, and lots of one-to-one class time with Lucy Barter, who was in charge of the program at the time.
Yeah.
So a couple of good things came out of that one. One was the access to their library. They have a really fantastic library, thousands of books, antique books, modern books, all on embroidery, of course, and every technique, and lots of books on design as well. But I found some real gems in their antique library that I would never have access to otherwise, which I use to help me with my research paper that I'm writing for the EGA.
Okay, so all right, straighten me out here then. So you basically went to the San Francisco school with your own curriculum, or at least a loose plan.
Yeah.
But then the paper is not for them. It's not part of that class or that course. Okay. No,
it's not. No. So I use some of the learnings that I acquired there to help me write a research paper that I'm currently working on for the EGA. I received the research fellowship grant a year and a half ago, and part of this is for me to write a report for them on my topic of choice, which is essentially going to be about the history of couching stitches and different types of couching stitches, and what's Or Nue and what's Italian shading and what's diaper patterns. So yes, I'm off with that and doing a lot of research. I've interviewed the former head of the Royal School of Needlework. She's called Liz Elvin. She was the principal there. And I asked her all about her background with Or Nue and when the term Italian shading came about, because she worked closely with some pioneers in goldwork embroidery in the 1970s, Beryl Dean. So she was able to give me background on that, which I'll include in my report as part of my research. And I went into the archives of the Victoria and Albert Museum, and the archives for their textiles are held at a place called the Cloth Workers Center. And anyone with a research question can go in and have access to the archives by appointment, but for free. And I looked at some pretty amazing textiles that used Or Nue and various forms of couching as well. And also went into St. Paul's Cathedral to look in their archives and the textile archives of the Royal School of Needlework itself. So I'm using all the images and the interviews and the books that I've had access to put it all together into one research paper.
So you're digging way back into ancient history then with this.
I'm kind of not looking before the 16th century, kind of 1600s onwards, but some would say that's fairly ancient.
It's pretty old. Pretty old. Yeah. So this Italian needlework keeps popping up. I got to find a guess somewhere. What is the difference between Or Nue and Italian shading, or is there?
There is. So traditional Or Nue would be couching of metallic threads in a straight line, whereas it's usually figurative. Whereas Italian shading, it can be used in curves and swirls, circles. It can be just to kind of shade the leaf of a flower. So that's the differentiation. And as I said, Beryl Dean coined the term, and it kind of lost its use. Erica Wilson used the term as well. And then in the last few years, it's kind of popped up again, just to help differentiate couching in a straight line of a figurative motif versus couching in a not straight line. So that's kind of, in a nutshell, there you go.
So that's the defining difference then.
Yeah, some people would say that doing, pattern couching over metal threads is Or Nue, but it's not. It's pattern couching.
Okay. So your design color wheel, then that's Italian shading. And how are you achieving the colors in that? Because that one fascinates me.
Oh, mystery only to be untold once you give it a go yourself, Gary.
Is that how it works?
No. So I start with some silver threads on the outside of the circle. And as, I start to attach the threads in a circular motion. So every, we'll say 1 to 2 centimeters, I would switch my thread color. So I start with red, and then I move to orange, and then I move to orange, and yellow, and then green, switching my colors every time I move around the wheel a centimeter. Or as the colors get more intense, every couple of millimeters. And then right towards the middle of the color wheel, it's, every millimeter. So you have 12 needles on the go there. That's, for some people, that's tricky, but you don't want to thread and unthread your needle every centimeter, right?
Right.
So that's another feature of Or Nue and Italian shading is typically you have a number of colors on the go at the same time, and you have to keep them organized, keep track of them in a way that works for you.
Oh, I'm liking that challenge. Vonna.
Yeah.
Want to do that next?
What, Or Nue?
Yeah, her color wheel. Yeah.
The color wheel.
12 needles at once?
Well, I a lot of times have 12 needles going at once.
All different colors?
But yeah, I would do, no, not all different colors. I would do anything, Gary. I'm game for anything.
Okay. Buckle up.
Well, Gary, I have heard you say before to other people when talking about goldwork, I'll have to give that a go.
Yep.
So, you're saying it again. You have to choose a goldwork project and give it a try. Well,
I do want to give it a try, and I bought a small one and I haven't done it, but it's so different from regular stitching that and the lines and patterns you get out of it just intrigue me. And this wheel, I mean, that's fairly advanced in terms of color work, or not?
No, not really. And right now in the current issue of Inspirations magazine, the color wheel is featured there. And it's only like, let's see in inches. You work in inches here. It's like 1.5 inches big. Oh my goodness, that's it?
That's it?
Yeah. So it's meant to be a little brooch. So, they've featured my color wheel a bit smaller. Mine was a bit larger, which would be too big for a brooch. It was about the size of the jar of a standard mason jar lid. But this one's nice and small, so you don't have an enormous project to take on. And if you gave that one a go,
well, see, that's doable.
I'm confused. I've looked at those pictures, and what is it couching the thread on?
Exactly. And Vonna, as I understand, you're really an expert in cross stitch. Am I correct?
No.
Yes, she is. Yes, she is. Don't let her start tap dancing. Yes, she is.
So let me link this cross stitch to my color wheel here, okay, and couching. For the longest time, I thought cross stitch is so boring. It's just the same thing over and over again. And then I discovered couching and working with multiple colors and the repeated nature of couching became such a comfort for me, and it became my chosen technique. And that's when I actually developed a real appreciation for the repeated nature of the cross stitch work, and also changing your colors often to make your picture appear. So I think someone who likes cross stitch could potentially really enjoy Or Nue or Italian shading type of design. The trickiest thing is that you have to keep if you're doing it traditionally, you have to keep your lines straight, your lines of metal thread. I would say that's the hardest thing. And then in the color wheel, keeping it round. But once you get into the groove of it, it's so comforting and relaxing.
What is the ground cloth that you do this on?
You could use linen, you could use silk. I use both.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So it's not an even weave. So you don't have that as your helper. But there are some. I took an online course a couple of years ago on Russian pattern darning, and it was looking at Russian icons and how they use patterns in the icons that they were embroidering. And they showed us a way on not even weave fabric to trace lines that's going to go underneath all of your passing thread to help you count out your patterns. So that was really interesting to learn how to do as well. It's a way to use silk that's not even weave, but still be able to evenly count stitches if you want to do pattern work as typically seen in Russian icons. So all that to say, if you're a cross stitcher and you want to try goldwork, maybe couching, a piece with a lot of couching is the way to begin.
See, the trouble with talking to people like you, it's just trouble. It's just constant trouble. Yeah. Russia, was that your only exposure to Russian needlework?
Well,
because that intrigues me. That's a world that intrigues me.
Yeah, well, I have been to Russia and I've to the Kremlin, and I've been to other places to see Russian goldwork, but it was my first time to attempt stitching it. And that was great. That inspired multiple new designs. I took a Kogan pattern, which is Japanese, and I translated that to a goldwork project. So I combined what I learned in the Japanese, in my Russian goldwork course, and a Japanese Kogan pattern, and put them together into one. So it's really interesting to be able to blend and use what you learn to make new fusions of designs. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I see that in your work. It seems quite a bit, the fusion part.
I mean, I wouldn't say I'm so avant-garde and I'm not so modern, but I have tried to branch out a little bit on, including a steampunk element in a couple of my designs. And I have a piece inspired by Van Gogh's Starry Night painting where we use gold leaf. And once in a while I throw in some crystals or beads. And I once used a twig in one of my designs. Not super courageous for that kind of stuff, but I'm moving there.
Yeah. Yeah. The Van Gogh one, that really stands out. And then, I could see myself doing the steampunk stuff. That's fun because you're basically there. You're just doing a goldwork outline and then couching down, sewing down all these steampunk little gears and things.
Exactly. To be honest, that's my kit that has sold the most. It's the one that people have the most fun with.
Yeah.
It's easy. I would say you could do that in 2 days, and it's just fun you put puzzle pieces together. And it's been amazing to see what my students have come up with. Some of them have used their leftover watch parts and little bits of the grass, which are green metal threads, and use them in quite creative ways. And, people who are new to trying a design of mine, and they haven't been able to participate in a class, they can often see what other people have done, because what I do is I set up a Facebook group, a support group, a closed group for the steampunk snail, for example, or the color wheel, for example. And then everybody posts their work there and comments and shares, but only people who are working on the design. And then you can see what others have done, because it's nice to be able to see teachers' comments and what others have done, even if you can't take a class. And that's one way I've been able to help people get inspiration from each other.
And then you've got a couple of items there. The one, the Gatsby headpiece or belt, and that interests me because there's such a movement these days to embroider clothing.
Right. Yeah. I mean, and I tried to take it beyond just like a little patch or a more folky kind of embroidery on some jeans. I wanted to make something elegant, but that was more than a bag, because I've seen a lot of evening bags being made. And I thought, right, what about a belt or headscarf? And I did get some feedback that say that's a ridiculous idea. Who's ever going to wear a belt like that or a headscarf? And well,
that's constructive. Thank you.
Well, I like the design. I'm going to go ahead and make it anyway. And it turned out really nice, actually. I mean, it's something a bit more fancy that you would wear to a special occasion. Which is good, because you don't want to wear something like that all the time. It gets worn out. You can't wash it. Right. Goldwork, you can't wash. Mm-hmm. So I've done a couple of these headscarves and belts, and there's the brooch idea, and I have a few other brooch ideas in mind as well. In that little secret notebook.
Yes, that book. Yes. All right. Now the other thing that stopped me was stitching parties.
Oh, right. Well, I advertise stitching parties, but in reality, they very rarely happen.
Okay.
So this meant to be things like a baby shower. You could hire me to come to your house and lead part of the baby shower, stitching up something for the mom to be or the baby to be. And, or, bridal shower, you could stitch something on a pair of knickers or handkerchiefs or whatnot. But it's only happened a couple of times. So perhaps I need to market that a bit differently.
Well, just the fact that you've gotten it to happen a couple of times, because that would be a very different kind of party.
Yeah, no, it's really fun for the teacher, as I have had people invite me to their homes to lead classes as well, and they always take such good care of the teacher. They offer you wine, they feed you snacks, and everybody wants to have a good time and maybe learn a little bit of embroidery.
Well, and that's what I mean is that, how much learning can you do in that kind of an environment? But I guess if you expose them to the techniques, then that's progress in its own right.
Yeah, and they might come back for some more lessons. And in the end, I make sure that the mom-to-be has something embroidered to come home with. And even if that means I need to pick up a few muslins and finish them off myself for the participants.
Whatever makes it work. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then you also say you do bespoke orders. I think I even I did. I put it in the notes. I'm impressed you're even willing to do that. Is that?
Well, this is interesting. A lot of people have contacted me for bespoke orders, but then when I talk to them about the price, most of them I don't hear from again. But I have had a few. I've done a lovely couple of baby christening gowns, putting the names and dates on the christening gowns, and for another family, I did some baby blankets. And I just had a man approach me. He wants to donate a bag from Romania from a couple generations ago to a museum, but it needs repair. It has metal thread embroidery on it. And so he's asked me to do the work. And we'll see what he says once he knows the price. Yeah. He might just donate it to the museum as is.
Exactly. Yeah.
My time is precious, and I'm not going to work for less than minimum wage. And sometimes projects can take 30 or 40 hours, as you know, and people don't realize how much this costs. So I've had schools approach me to do monograms on like a uniform, for example, but they need 40 of them. So, okay, well, per uniform, it's going to take me X amount of hours. And so this is the cost. And when they are surprised by that, I said, you know what, you're best to go to a place that does machine embroidery. Yep. If this is what you want to pay, you need to go to a machine embroidery place.
Yeah, every time that question's come up for me, do you sell those things? you can't afford it. Just move on. You can't afford it.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Even at minimum wage. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, you'd never pay
And
it.
I'm at peace with saying that, my time is valuable. I'm not going to work for nothing.
Right. The candy cane cut work study.
Oh, right. You like that
Tell me about
design?
that. Yeah, because it doesn't look like cut work at all. What are you
Oh,
doing?
right. So I'm using metal pearls. And a metal pearl, do you know what I mean when I say that?
Nope.
Okay. Imagine a long tube coiled around a needle. So a long piece of wire coiled around a needle. Imagine bugle beads, actually. If I say that, does that help you?
Yes.
So imagine a bugle bead that's made up of a very fine coiled wire. And you can cut this wire into whatever length you need to. And then you sew it on like a bead. So I've taken lengths, it's about a centimeter length, and attached them over top of some felt padding all around the candy cane to make that shape, switching between red and various kinds of silver. And then I've outlined it with some pearl to make a festive design. And when we say cut work in metal thread embroidery, we mean we're cutting pearls to a particular length to typically fit over padding and go around a curve.
Okay, now it makes sense to me. Because cut work to me means hardanger or something like that.
Yep, and I clued in that's what you were thinking of. Yeah. So that's a sweet little design that's actually going to be profiled in the Needle Arts magazine for the EGA in December. So just in time for Christmas.
There we go.
So people will be able to purchase the notes for that from the EGA.
It's very striking.
Yeah, it's nice contrast of the back. The ground material there I've used is 100% wool felt, which is soft and fuzzy, and then the colder metal pearls. So I find visually it's a really nice contrast, and then finish off with some silk ribbon. So you've got 3 different textures there, and even within the pearls, there's different types of pearls. There's a bright check pearl, and there's a smooth pearl. So all that to say, this little piece captures a lot.
What is your goldwork supply? Who do you get your goldwork materials from? Are those fairly readily available?
Well, you won't find them at any shop. That's for sure.
Exactly. Yes.
No brick and mortar shop, I should say. Very rarely. I order from Benton and Johnson, which is one of the 2 remaining manufacturers in the UK. It's like the factory. It's where it's produced. I've gone there for a tour actually to see their old machinery and how it's produced, and everything is made to order. They don't keep a stock in hand because their threads can tarnish, right? If they keep it in stock for a long time. Mm-hmm. So I order in bulk from them, which is always really exciting when that arrives in the mail. And I get great little packages, and I try and keep it all nicely stored away. As I said, they tarnish and they change over time.
Do we use gloves when we do this gold work?
No.
No?
There's no way I could do this fine work and wear gloves at the same time.
That's why I wondered.
Now, of course, some people say you should wear gloves when you're handling your metal threads, but in practice, that's not really done. I don't know anybody that stitches with gloves on.
Okay. Because, that would just be a lot of fumbling around to me.
Yeah.
But you have to be careful you don't handle the metal a lot.
Yeah, and it also depends on the oils that your own body produces. Some people can handle the silver threads and they'll tarnish very quickly, and other people, theirs won't tarnish as quickly. So you get used to it. You'll know how much you can handle your threads as you start to work with them.
Okay, I got to give it, Vonna, we just got to do this, Vonna.
It makes me nervous. I am interested in the circle color wheel thing.
Right. Well, maybe I'll follow up on you guys and see if that ever happened, or invite you to the support group.
The support group, yeah, the support group.
But I have another circular design, is the Starry Night one that you mentioned earlier.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
That one I think is a little less intimidating because it doesn't need to be a perfect circle. It's mostly couching. 90% of the design is couching, but in a much more creative and relaxed way, and doesn't need to be precise, but you still get the practice of doing some couching with a pattern, and then random couching as well. So I think that one is a design that can work for all kinds of stitchers, the creative, more flexible kind, and also the more rigid stitcher.
Because that's beautiful. I really like that one.
Yeah.
That has some beautiful lines to it.
I wasn't sure what I was going to do with it when I made it up. And then when I went to teach at the San Francisco School of Needlework and Design last year, I showed it to them and they said, that is such a strong design, Natalie. You should think about teaching that. And so lo and behold, sure enough, I'm coming down to teach it for them next month.
Oh.
And this is, positive feedback is so important to a designer to keep them going and get new ideas happening. So that should be fun. And I'll also teach that one for the EGA in 2020. Mm-hmm. So it's nice when you get feedback to try it out as a teaching piece, and then everybody wants it, which is, oh, great.
Yep.
That's fun. Yeah. You've got messy threads there. You've got very neat threads. You've got some gold leaf. You've got, all kinds of couching and many, many different metal threads. So somebody who hasn't done metal thread embroidery before, they might like that because they get exposure to a lot of different threads. Whereas the color wheel, it's just two kinds of metal threads.
Okay. All right. Oh, I got to stop this.
Choices, eh?
I just got to stop. Stop. It's out of control. Yeah. Okay, and then you've been bored.
Right.
And so now you're doing a judges program?
Oh, right. Yeah. So
you do have 2 kids, right? I'm just checking. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. I stay up late, and when they'd be napping, I'd run to my studio and work as much as I can. But yeah, I really like doing student feedback. I like doing assessment. My master's degree is in curriculum design and teacher-student development. So once I started looking at designs and wondering how designs are judged and how can we help our students grow, or my students grow, I thought, what if I could become a judge? Or what if I could become a person who leads the judging session and really help make sure that the assessment and the feedback to the stitchers is what's going to help them grow. Mm-hmm. So I looked into the judging program that I noticed was offered by the EGA. It's a very comprehensive 2-year program. You have to do a 6-month written exam and open book exams as well. You have to attend conferences. You have to do judging sessions. And it's been really fascinating. And somebody asked me recently, well, what are you going to do with that? Why are you bothering? But it has helped me look at my own design work more creatively and think about how to best interact with people to help them grow and be good assessors themselves. So I like when I was a school teacher, I was also the literacy head. So I would help teachers look at their work and self-assess and think about the assessments that they're using for student growth. So that's how my interest in the judging program grew as well. And there's a fantastic lady, Pat Goldie, that runs the program, who's being my mentor as well.
Yeah, that would be my goal to tackle something like that, would be to improve my own stitching, because I have to believe that has really opened your eyes.
Yeah. Particularly, you have to do, you're given 6 months to complete a design and color theory exam, and it's hard work. So I've been able to use all the knowledge in there and look at my own designs and think about now that I am looking deeper into this, because I already had a background in it, but now I'm really going into it. How would I apply this to my color planning in the future? And what impact does it have on the viewer that I never thought of before? So whether or not I'll be able to apply this to the feedback that I give my students, that's to be seen. But my ultimate goal is to find ways to help people who have submitted pieces, or my students in general, to improve. Instead of, there's no point in just hearing, you've done wonderful, good job. You need some detailed feedback in a constructive way to grow.
Yeah. Well, see, and that's powerful. The editor, the magazine editor, who I always consider to be my mentor and the guy who taught me how to be an editor, the first couple of times that I submitted a manuscript that I had edited and it came back pretty much solid blue, that was back in the typewriter days.
Okay.
And,
right.
but he sat down with me.
Yeah.
And took me through every single thing and explained why he made those changes. And he had all the terminology right, participle, past participle, all that stuff, which, I don't know half of it. I can't use half of it. But I said to him, number one, how do you know all of this?
Right.
And he said, because early on when he became an editor, he took a very aggressive advanced English course. English and grammar course. And the sole purpose of that was so that when he explained to people how he wanted things edited, that he knew what he was talking about, that he wasn't just making it up or I feel like this is better. And that had a tremendous impact on me because I knew that there was good reasoning behind all of those things. And I took that to heart. And it made me a better editor just because of that. Yeah.
Can imagine. I love to be able to know, why is this more visually appealing?
Right.
Why should I mix? Why should I have a variety of values in my piece? Don't just tell me I should have. Why should I? And only by, doing exercises and working it can you really see that and then start to incorporate it in your own designs.
Yep. And that's exactly what he was able to do with the words. It wasn't I'm the boss, I say so. It was here's why. Here's where it goes wrong, and here's how it should be done so it reads right. And, huge difference, yes.
Even when I was a school teacher, I had one of my colleagues, she always said, you should ask yourself, so what? Or if your students asked you, so what, you need to be able to respond with the reason. Why are we learning this? How does this apply to me? So what? And I think of that often, the so what factor.
Yeah. Worth it. Worth the trouble. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. So studio, you have your own studio or just a corner in the house or?
No, I've got a gorgeous room, north-facing room in my home, with a door and lots of cupboards, and it's my space. It's my personal space. And luckily I've set it up in such a nice way that in the evenings when I'm stitching, my husband likes to come in here and play the guitar to me while I stitch away. So it's become really like a sanctuary for myself and him in the evenings. And my kids are allowed to come in here as well, but there are strict rules.
I'll bet.
This is the cupboard of your stuff, and do not touch anything that's covered in tissue paper. But I also give them lots of little materials to play with. All my scraps they can stretch out around the house and in here. So it's quite a lovely little space.
Oh, that's
it's just
nice.
It's just a room, but it's a special room.
And lots of window daylight.
Yeah, great daylight, and it's nice to have this kind of quiet, organized space in the chaos of the rest of the house where the whole family lives, right?
Right.
There's no toys in here. There's no food.
Oh yeah, that would be key, wouldn't it? No food. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Especially with little kids. Yeah. No food.
Yeah.
Move on.
Yeah.
All right, Natalie. Thank you so much. This has been great.
Thank you, Gary, for your time. And Vonna, nice to chat with you as well.
I didn't do much chatting. I was just soaking it all in, but it was certainly a lovely hour.
Great. Thank you too much.
Beautiful
so much.
stuff. All right. Thanks. And thanks to everybody for listening.